Montana Territory, spring of 1879. The air smelled of pine sap and coal smoke as the westbound train screeched into Hollow Creek Station. Steam hissed around the iron wheels, drifting over the wooden platform where a handful of townsfolk waited, hats pulled low against the chill. In the distance, the mountains stood dark and vast, still capped with snow, though the valley grass had begun to green. Jesse Holt stood among them, a tall figure in dust, stained boots, and a weathered duster, one hand resting on the shoulder of each of his children. Matthew and Maisie, 8 years old, restless and curious, fidgeted beside him, their eyes darting toward every whistle and clang. For the first time in years, Jesse's heart felt unsure. War and drought had carved away his certainty long ago, yet today, facing the arrival of a woman he'd promised to marry by letter, he felt like a man about to walk into a storm. He unfolded the creased paper once more, reading the words that had brought him here. Clara Dorsy, age 27, brown hair, no family, willing to live on a ranch. There was no mention of what came next. The conductor stepped down first, calling names as porters unloaded trunks. Then the murmurs began. A hush that rippled through the crowd like a sudden wind. A porter rolled a wheelchair down the ramp, its occupant calm and poised, hands gloved, chestnut hair twisted neatly at her nape. In her lap sat a worn leather-bound book. Her gaze swept the platform, steady and unafraid, until it found him. Jess's breath caught. He had imagined many things. A widow, a frail woman, a stranger's smile. He had not imagined this. "You must be Mr. Holt," she said softly, her voice clear as a bell in morning air. "I am Clara Dorsy." He took off his hat, searching for words. "Mom." Well, for a moment, no one moved. Then Maisie wriggled free from his grasp and trotted forward. "Papa." "Is that her?" "Maisie," he warned, but too late. The little girl stopped before the wheelchair, peering up with blunt curiosity. "Why are you sitting like that?" Jesse flushed, but before he could speak, Clara smiled gently. "Because my horse has wheels, sweetheart," she said. "And he doesn't need oats. Only a good shove now and then." Matthew edged closer, grinning. "Is it fast?" "Depends on who's pushing." She winked. The tension on the platform broke into faint laughter. Even Jesse felt the corner of his mouth twitch. Clara raised her book. "Do you two like stories?" Both children nodded eagerly. "Well," she said, eyes twinkling, "once upon a time, there was a cowboy who met a dinosaur." A gasps and giggles spread through the small crowd. Jesse found himself listening as she spun the tale of a grumpy creature with boots too big for its claws and a hat too small for its head, searching the plains for a friend who wouldn't run when he roared. When she finished, silence lingered a moment longer, the kind that softens a place. Jesse stepped forward, picked up her small valise, and nodded toward his wagon. "I'll take that." "Thank you, Mr. Holt," she said. Maisie tugged the back of Clara's chair. "Can I push her?" Clara glanced up at Jesse. "If your father allows it." He hesitated, then sighed. "All right. Just mind the rocks." Clara smiled. "We'll both learn as we go." Life at the Holt Ranch settled into uneasy rhythm. Clara, or rather, the woman everyone called Clara, moved in under a practical arrangement. A few trial weeks before any vows. Jesse called it good sense. The town called it scandal. Hollow Creek thrived on talk. In the saloon, men leaned over cards and muttered. "Brought in a bride with wheels on her feet. Reckon she tricked him. Poor fool never saw it comin'." At the general store, women whispered behind bolts of fabric. "He could have had that nurse girl. Young, healthy. Instead, he brings home a cripple." Jesse heard it all. He just worked harder, saddling up before dawn, coming home long after dark. At supper, the silence was thick as dust. The children chattered, Clara answered with calm warmth. Jesse ate in quiet, watching her from under the brim of his hat. One evening, when Maisie yelped from a splinter, Clara rolled closer. "Let me see, sweetheart." She plucked the splinter free, pressed a kiss to the tiny wound, and smiled. "I'll bet her." Jesse froze mid-bite. Something inside him shifted. He'd been braced for pity, burden, regret, but not for this quiet grace. This woman who soothed pain like it was second nature. Later that night, he sat on the porch beneath the lantern glow, listening to her laughter inside with the children. It had been years since that sound had filled his house. He didn't know what to do with it. When Jesse finally opened her journal, it wasn't out of suspicion. It was exhaustion. The book had been left on the kitchen table beside folded laundry. Its leather cover felt warm from the sun. He meant to set it aside, but curiosity won. I know he regrets, one line read. I see it in his shoulders, the way he carries more than cattle. I do not blame him. I am not what he expected. But the children laugh when I read, and that is more than I thought I'd find. Jesse swallowed hard. Another page I used her name because mine felt cursed. Clara's meant light and freedom. Mine meant pity. I could not bear their faces when they learned the truth. A gasp broke the stillness. He turned. She was in the doorway, pale, eyes wide. He began, closing the book. It was open. I shouldn't have. You read it. Her voice trembled, but not with anger. Shame. Only a few lines. He said quietly. She looked away. It's all right. I wrote them to be read someday, just not like this. He stepped closer, voice low. You've been honest on those pages. I haven't been half as brave. I thought silence was easier than kindness. Maybe I was wrong. Her eyes met his. For the first time, there was no distance in them. Only understanding. The next morning, Jesse received a letter, one addressed not to Clara, but from her. The name read Eliza Dorsy. When he handed it to her, she hesitated. You know, she whispered. Tell me, he said simply. She drew a slow breath. My name is Eliza. Clara was my younger sister. Jesse didn't interrupt. My father was Judge Dorsy, she continued. He sentenced the wrong men, made enemies. One night, they came to our home. I tried to protect Clara. I fell from the balcony. My spine broke. Her chin lifted, defiant even through pain. When Clara married, she gave me her name so I might start again. I didn't come to trick you. I only wanted to be seen as more than this. She gestured at the chair. I wanted a chance to live again. Jesse's voice was rough when he finally spoke. I'm not angry you lied. I'm angry you thought you had to. Though she blinked fast, tears shining. From now on, he said, kneeling before her, live with your name. Eliza, her breath caught. For the first time, someone had spoken her true name without pity. He reached out, resting his hand lightly over hers. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was warm, like a bridge built plank by plank. That night, Jesse knocked softly on her door, carrying a tray. I made tea, he said awkwardly. Or tried. Eliza smiled faintly. You brewed it yourself. No one died, he replied, setting the cup beside her. She chuckled, then grew quiet as he stood by the window. My wife was sick for years, he said at last. I told myself never again. But then you came, and I saw how my children look at you. How you make this house alive. How Eliza's eyes glistened. Maybe we're both just broken things trying to mend. He nodded slowly. Even broken pieces can build something worth keeping. Dawn came soft and pale, brushing the plains in gold. The Holt ranch still slept, but Eliza was already awake. She moved quietly through the house, the creak of the wooden floors matching the rhythm of her wheels. Outside she could hear Jesse splitting wood, each strike echoing against the hills. By the time he stepped inside, sweat on his brow and sawdust clinging to his shirt, the smell of biscuits and coffee filled the kitchen. The children were at the table, bent over their boots. Now, Eliza said gently, showing them the laces. Cross it like a little bridge. That's it. Now the bunny dives under. Matthew squinted. Why does the bunny go under? To find his carrot, of course, she said, smiling. Maisie giggled so hard, she nearly toppled her cup. Jesse stopped in the doorway, hat in hand. Just watching. The morning light hallowed Eliza's hair. She looked nothing like the woman who'd stepped off the train weeks ago. She looked like she belonged here. Later, she sat on the porch brushing Maisie's hair, tying it with a faded sky blue ribbon. This was my mother's. Eliza murmured. She used to braid my hair every Sunday before church. Did she make you pretty? Maisie asked. She made me feel pretty, Eliza said softly. From the barn's shadow. Jesse paused mid-step. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but her words hit something deep in him. He hadn't realized how quiet his home had been until her laughter started filling it. That afternoon, sunlight baked the fields. Matthew ran through the yard, chasing a runaway hoop. when he stumbled over a rock and cried out. Eliza reacted without thinking. She pushed hard on her wheels, the chair rattling over dirt, reaching him just in time to catch his fall. But momentum betrayed her. The chair tipped. She hit the ground hard, dust rising around them. Still, her arms stayed locked around the boy. Jesse came running from the stable. "You all right?" Eliza looked up, wincing, a smile tugging at her lips. "I've had more graceful days." He crouched beside her, voice low. "You could have been hurt." "Wouldn't be the first time," she said, laughing softly. Without another word, he lifted her into his arms. She felt lighter than air, and yet, somehow, heavier with meaning. He carried her toward the porch, his voice a low rumble. "You went and saved the boy hut." Eliza blushed faintly. "Every ranch needs a hero." "You already are," he said. "You just forgot your cape." She looked up at him then, and something changed between them. Something real and quiet. That evening, the supper table felt different. Jesse lingered, not rushing through his meal. He found himself watching her hands as she passed the dishes, the way her fingers brushed his by accident. When she read the children to sleep that night, her voice moved through the house like soft rain after drought. The next morning broke dry and still. The children played near the old grain shed, their laughter echoing across the yard. Eliza sat under a cottonwood tree with her journal, scribbling thoughts between patches of sunlight. That's when she heard it, a faint hiss. At first, it sounded like wind through grass, then sharper, meaner. Her eyes darted toward the shed. A rattlesnake lay coiled, tail twitching, barely a few feet from Maisie's small boots. "Maisie!" Eliza shouted, panic clawing her chest. The girl didn't hear her, too busy humming and plucking wildflowers. Eliza's gaze darted around. No rocks, no stick, only her ink bottle. Without hesitation, she snatched it and threw with all her might. The glass struck true. The snake jerked once and went still. Maisie screamed. Jesse came barreling from the barn, rifle in hand. He stopped dead at the sight, the shattered ink bottle, the dead snake. Eliza trembling in her chair with Maisie clinging to her waist. "I heard it," Maisie sobbed. "It was right there." "I know, sweetheart. It's gone now." Eliza held her close, voice shaking. Jesse dropped to one knee beside them, chest heaving. His gaze shifted between the snake and the woman who'd risk everything to save his child. Maisie buried her face in Eliza's skirt. "Mama Eliza," she cried. "Mama Eliza!" The name hung in the air like a prayer. Jesse's throat tightened. He didn't correct her. He cool, but the rest of Hollow Creek wasn't so forgiving. The story of the crippled bride, who'd come to the Holt ranch, traveled fast, carried on tongues slick with jealousy and ignorance. At the general store, women gossiped between scoops of sugar. "She fooled him, that's what," one said. Poor Jesse Holt, saddled with a broken woman. At the saloon, a ranch hand spat tobacco and muttered, "Ain't right. A man like Holt needs someone strong enough to keep pace." Before long, someone decided it was a matter that needed discussion. A town meeting, unofficial but loaded with judgment, was called in the old schoolhouse. Jesse was invited. He went. The place smelled of chalk dust and sweat. Faces he'd known for years filled the benches, each one waiting for him to justify himself. Mayor Hawthorne cleared his throat. "Now, Jesse, folks are worried." "About what?" Jesse asked evenly. "About your situation," said a pinched-faced woman near the front. "You've got young children, a ranch to run. And that woman?" "Her name is Eliza," Jesse said flatly. A man rose from the back, hat in hand. "You're a good fella, Jesse. But it's not too late. Linda May's girl, she's a nurse, strong, kind. She could be a proper mother for them young guns." Jesse unfolded his arms and stepped forward. The floorboards creaked beneath his boots. "Eliza is already their mother." A murmur rippled through the crowd. He ignored it. "She reads to them every night. She taught my boy to tie his boots. She threw herself between my daughter and a rattler yesterday." His voice hardened. "Tell me which one of you would have done the same." No one answered. "You want me to throw her out because she doesn't fit your picture of perfect? Then you don't know what real strength looks like." He left them there in silence. Outside, Eliza waited in the wagon, unaware of the gathering. When Jesse returned, There was no anger in his eyes, only purpose. He climbed up beside her and, without a word, lifted her into his arms. "Jesse," she gasped. "What on earth?" "Trust me." He carried her straight through the heart of Hollow Creek. Past the saloon, the blacksmith, the gawking porches. People turned to stare, whispers flitting like birds. He stopped in the town square and set her down gently on the bench beside the well. Then he turned to face them all. "If anyone still thinks she doesn't belong here," he said loudly, "say it to her face." No one spoke. He scanned the crowd. "This woman has more grit in her than half the men standing here. She's fought for every inch of her life. She's mine, and she belongs here, same as any of you." Silence spread wide and heavy. Then, from the back, a small voice piped up.
"She's our mama now?"
Maisie stood beside Matthew, chin lifted proud. The words cracked something open. No cheers, no applause, just a shift. Faces softened. The preacher looked down. The storekeeper nodded once. A few women exchanged guilty glances. The crowd thinned slowly, shame walking with them. Eliza sat still, hands folded tight in her lap, tears glinting like stars in her eyes. Jesse leaned close. "They needed to see it," he murmured. "What you already knew," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "That your home." That evening, thunder rolled along the far ridges. The air felt heavy, as if waiting. A stranger rode into Hollow Creek, a lean man with a crooked jaw and a limp that made each step deliberate. He tied his mule outside the saloon and ordered whiskey. No one recognized him. But when he caught sight of Eliza passing in her chair, near the storehouse, the glass in his hand cracked. His voice was low, but full of venom. "Judge Dorsey's girl," he muttered. "Well, I'll be damned." That night, rain held off but the wind picked up, scraping at shutters and fences. The Holt house was quiet when 3 slow knocks came at the door. Jesse opened it, hand resting near his holster. A shadow filled the porch, broad-shouldered, coat dusty, eyes mean. "Name's Cutter," the man said, voice rough as gravel. "I'm looking for a Dorsey." Jesse's stare didn't waver. "Ain't no one by that name here." "Funny," Cutter drawled, glancing past him toward the lamplight spilling from the parlor window. "I seen a woman today. Looks just like the judge's daughter. That bastard hung my brother 15 years ago." The air turned cold. Jesse stepped forward slowly, blocking the doorway. "You're mistaken." "Am I?" Cutter's lips twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. The storm outside finally broke.